This is move 4. In Belgium 2016, 100,000 is on the line, and Magnus Carlsen has just erected the Carlsen pyramid. His opponent? Anish Giri, the only super GM with proven mating skills. And with bishop e2, Giri launches what he believes will be a lethal mating attack. But what if I told you that in just 15 moves, his entire position will crumble, and he will resign without laying a single finger on Black's king? Hi, I'm Mortal Chess, and today, with 3 mind-blowing games, I'm going to teach you how to keep your king safe, but more importantly, a sneaky way to turn the tables on aggressive opponents. But first, we need to break some chess opening rules. At the start of a chess game, the fundamental principle is to develop your minor pieces, especially the knights. You control the center, and then quickly castle. We, on the other hand, have spent the first 4 moves building a pyramid and developing our light-squared bishop. But perhaps the dirtiest trick I'll teach you today is to delay castling. That's because against most opponents, even up to 2000 rated players, this king is perfectly safe in the center. But there's one problem. This structure is somewhat passive. It invites ambition from any daring player with the white pieces. Now whether they break through, destroy the pyramid, and wreak havoc on your king, or whether you dig in your heels and fire a devastating counterattack, depends on one key chess skill. Pawn breaks. A pawn break is a pawn move that forces a pawn trade, leading to a change in structure and the opening of files and diagonals. Moves like c5, f6, and even f5 if we allow it, can be devastating. The question is, which pawn break do you play, and when? That knowledge is what separates the likes of Magnus Carlsen from Teletubbies like you and I. But fear not, today, I'm putting my chess teaching skills to the test, and by the end of this video, I hope to leave you with something truly valuable. But if you've learned something new already, leave a like. It goes a long way to support the channel. And subscribing? Well, why would you ever do such a thing? Bishop before check by Magnus Carlsen, the strongest chess player of all time. After Chuck Norris, of course. c3 blocks, and in a few moves, this bishop is maneuvered to c7, after which, Magnus Carlsen initiates the first counterattack with a pawn break. f6. Why? Why not c5? Well, this is what you're here for. First, you assess the general direction your pieces are pointing, because after initiating a pawn break on a specific side of the board, you have to play chess on that same side of the board. Secondly, pawn breaks open files and diagonals. So if f takes g6 happens, a diagonal opens, which given the presence of this bishop, is to Black's advantage. Moves like knight g5 will then cause immediate headaches for white. And thirdly, king safety. Every time you play f6 or any other kingside pawn break, you always have to ask yourself, how comfortable is my king? In this case, due to the position of white's pieces and the closed structure in the center, I don't see any checks happening anytime soon, let alone checkmate. So as a result, f6 is on the board. Magnus Carlsen went through this thought process instantly. They call it feel, or intuition. A skill I'd like you guys to develop, by thinking more of chess in terms of the following words. Instead of if he goes here, I go there, and if he goes there, I'll go here. There's a time and place for that kind of primitive thinking. It's called checkers. And the place? Yeah, probably South Africa. South Africa. Elon Musk left for a reason. Anyway, Anish Giri plays rook e1, lining up Carlsen's king, and in response, a weird move. Knight h6. This is often a decent way to develop the knight, if and only if, an instant bishop takes h6 isn't on the cards. But after knight f1 and takes, Magnus allows it, by castling. Why? Believe it or not, the reason this king is still perfectly safe, is the pyramid at the center. Well, what's left of it anyway? The solid center severely limits the routes white's pieces have toward Black's king. Had this been an open center position, it would have been curtains. So those first moves you spent building the pyramid? They allow you to take some kingside liberties later on in the middle game, because after moves like king h8 and rook g8, which king is in trouble exactly? Chess, like life, is a game of giving and taking, and if you manage to take more than you give, congratulations, you're either a pretty decent chess player, or a government employee. Anyway, queen to d4 is Giri's plan to access Carlsen's kingside, a plan which is immediately shut down by bishop e4. Knight g3 hits the bishop, and after a few annoying moves on the queen, Magnus gives away his light-squared bishop. But not without leaving Anish Giri a massive problem to solve at the center. And for players at this level, capturing a single pawn is often enough to win the whole game. So Carlsen offers a trade of queens. Takes, and Anish starts targeting one of Black's most obvious weaknesses. The rook swings to protect, and rook e2 seeks to create a double rook x-ray attack on the e6 pawn, while conceding that he's already lost his e5 pawn. Knight takes, a few moves are played, and Anish resigns. Yes, The position is nowhere near resignable. But you're a pawn down, in a terrible position, against Magnus Carlsen. Can you blame him for saving his energy for the next game? I wouldn't, but forget the grandmasters. If you've been in the rating trenches, you know the rule. The lower the rating, the higher the IQ. And next, we've got two 2300 rated gladiators from Lee Chess. Their usernames? About as deep and meaningful as an itch on the sack. But their gameplay? Incredibly instructive. And if you play the Caro-Kann, this might just change how you play forever. E4 and C6 is the Caro-Kann defense, a move played in preparation for the central strike D5. But E5 is the advanced variation, the most aggressive line against the Caro-Kann. Bishop F5 is played, after which the pyramid is complete. A deep breath. Here comes pure unsolicited aggression. G4. The bishop has to step back, and H4 is already on the board. Yes. It's indeed that kind of game. This bishop is already a bit uncomfortable. So what was black's move? H6? No, H5 exclamation. You give up a pawn to shut down white's pawn storm before it even gets rolling. Because in chess, few things are more useless than doubled pawns. And if they're stuck on the flank? Sitting ducks. So bishop F5 happens, white plays F4, and now you have to ask, how exactly is white supposed to keep this kingside attack going? But here's the best part. After all that effort to create chaos on the kingside, black can just decide to castle queenside. That's why delaying castling in these positions is such a sneaky little tactic. But black doesn't even bother with that right away. He trusts the pyramid, says, my king's perfectly fine here in the center, and immediately goes for a counterattack. Bishop E7 hits the board, and now white has to figure out how to hold onto this H4 pawn. Knight F3? Yes, sure, but now this pawn loses its defender, and a few moves later, they're both gone. White tries shifting gears, looking for some play along the G file, but G6 slams the door shut, and now just look at this beautiful, solid, light squared structure. We are witnessing a masterclass in defensive positional play. Then bishop B4 comes in, forcing a trade of black's last bishop for a knight, which normally isn't ideal. But in closed positions like this, knights can just bounce from outpost to outpost, making life miserable for the bishops. Captures, a few moves are played, and white forces an exchange and gains control of the H file. A kingside infiltration is now imminent, but when it happens, this king will be long gone. Long castles. All white can do is attack the F pawn, a one-move threat, which is easily dealt with by rook F8. White is out of ideas. He settles for a rather sad bishop to G4, and now all black has to do is place this knight on C4, this queen on A3, and it's game over. He plays C5 instead, an ill-timed pawn break. Who do you think has more to benefit from the opening up of this diagonal? Yes, it's white, but had this rook been on C8, ready to cause immediate problems up the C file, the C5 break would have made a little more sense. But like I said earlier, knowing what pawn breaks exist in a position is one thing. Knowing exactly when to play them? That's grandmaster level chess. Anyway, white doesn't punish the mistake. A few more bad moves get played, and eventually, black's got everything exactly where he wants it. Queen C2 is basically the only thing holding white's position together, but now, all black needs is just one little check on the first rank and it's game over. So rook G8 happens, white starts full-on panic defending, closes the G and H files, and even starts begging for queen trades to cool things down. Queen A6, queen B4, and now, here we are. You're black, you've got a good knight versus a bad bishop, you're up a pawn, and you've got soft targets everywhere. Everything about this position screams winning advantage. But how do you actually go from winning advantage to just winning? That's not today's lesson, but since you stayed this long, here's a little sneaky tip for anyone under 2000. Find your opponent's weaknesses, and attack them. If they defend one, switch to the next. Keep them dancing until they slip up. That's exactly what happens here. Bishop E7. A 2400 leaves a pawn hanging. Did one of you guys' brains suddenly spawn in his body? No. Don't underestimate the power of psychology. Everyone's got that little voice in the back of their head saying, you are garbage, your wife's cheating on you. Dumbass. Can you blame her though? Look at you. You should just resign. Jesus. Yes, unfortunately, some voices are much louder than others. Just know you're not alone. Anyway, now 2 pawns up, black takes the opportunity to trade queens. Next he trades bishops, transposing into a clearly winning endgame. That's all she wrote. But it wouldn't be a Mortal Chess video without a sub 1000 ELO showdown to accelerate your hair loss. D4, C6, E4 and D5. Regardless of move order, is the Caro-Kann defense, but since aggression is the theme of the day, f4 and g4 are on the board. The philosophy of the Caro-Kann defense is solid structure, king safety, and patience, but enter brilliance, in the form of an 800 rated lead chess player, leaving me in deep contemplation. If you know your king is safe under the pyramid, why not go on an all-out attacking spree? And honestly, why not? Bishop e4 attacks white's rook, the knight blocks and queen a5 check, forces c3. Bishop to e7, is an artful move because after h3, presumably to protect the g-pawn, we get bishop to h4 check. And who in their right mind wouldn't capture a free piece? White takes, and ladies and gentlemen, the rook is hanging. Bishop takes h1. What you're feeling right now, is inspiration. With a hint of jealousy, but it gets worse. Because b4 hits the queen, which retreats to d8. But is that all? No, nothing is ever as it seems in the presence of a strategic genius. c5 initiates a pawn break and fails to notice the secondary purpose of the queen retreat. Queen takes knight check, and after king d2, black successfully infiltrates white's position. Queen f2, check. This is a story of king safety. One king is in the frying pan, the other is safely nestled within the confines of the robust Caro-Kann pyramid. Black and bulletproof. An American cop's worst nightmare. Queen takes d4 check, forces the bishop to shield, and black captures another pawn. Why didn't you capture the rook? Never question a genius at work. For reasons beyond your IQ, black has decided that the queen and bishop's missions have come to an end. Takes, and now, enter the Dark Knights. They wreak havoc on white's position until, with the high-level move knight takes c4, their mission comes to an end. Now, enter the rooks. Rook to d2. Yes, I believe the word you're looking for, is divine. White chooses to save his pawn, the rook maneuvers to e6, and after a few king moves, the rooks are doubled. An exchange is imminent on d4, after which, it's all but game over.
It's surreal when it happens. Sometimes God shows you a glimpse of his presence through the works of one individual's hands. We take a sneak peek beyond the veil, into the source code of creation itself. Transcendent.